I never planned to fall for anyone that night. Especially not her. The wedding had already been loud, music, laughter, a blur of faces I didn't know, but somehow the quiet after the last toast felt louder. I slipped out toward the garden, needing air. That's where I saw her for the first time. She was standing just beyond the string lights, the soft orange glow tracing the silver in her hair. The groom's mom. I recognized her from the photos in the slideshow. Everyone else was still inside, dancing to some old pop song, but she was alone, hands wrapped around a glass of untouched champagne. When she looked up and caught me staring, I should have looked away. I didn't. "You're the best man, right?" she asked, voice low, warm in a way that made me straighten my posture. "Yeah," I said, stepping closer. "You needed something?" She smiled a little. "A dance?" I laughed, thinking she was teasing. But she just waited, patient, like she already knew I'd say yes. Inside, the DJ had slowed things down. Some old love song. The kind that makes you feel both younger and older at the same time. She held out her hand. It trembled, just barely, and that tiny shake told me more than any small talk ever could. Her name was Elise. She smelled like vanilla and rain, and when I placed my hand on her back, I could feel the tension beneath her dress, not the nervous kind, more like a habit of holding herself together. "You don't have to humor me," she said softly. "Maybe I want to." Her eyes flicked up at me then, a look that lingered too long for strangers. The music faded around us, voices blurring into background noise. She kept a polite distance, but her thumb brushed against my wrist once, accidentally, and that was it. Something unspoken passed between us, quick and electric. When the song ended, she didn't let go right away. Neither did I. "Thank you," she said finally, clearing her throat. "My son's too busy being married to dance with his mother." I almost said something stupid like he should have made time for you, but the sadness in her tone made me stay quiet. I just nodded, hoping she'd understand. We ended up talking by the edge of the dance floor. About nothing, the music, the weather, her shoes hurting. The kind of talk that hides everything real underneath. But there were these pauses, long ones, where she looked at me like she was about to confess something, then smiled instead. "You remind me of someone," she said once. "Good or bad?" "Both." We laughed, but it wasn't funny. Later, when people started leaving, I offered to walk her to her car. She said no at first, then sighed and let me anyway. The air was cool. The parking lot empty except for a few cars under dim yellow lamps. She fumbled with her keys, and I noticed her hands shaking again. "You okay?" I asked. "Just cold," she murmured, but she wasn't shivering. I wanted to ask what she was really thinking, why she'd chosen me to dance with, but her phone buzzed before I could. She looked down at the screen, her face tightening, then softening again in one slow breath. I couldn't see what it said. She looked up at me and smiled, this small, tired smile that didn't match her eyes. "Can we talk later?" she asked. "There's something I think you should know." Before I could answer, the sound of the groom calling out for her echoed from across the lot. She turned, the light catching her profile, beautiful, sad, and completely unreadable, and then she was gone. I stood there watching her walk away, that text still glowing faintly in her hand, and for some reason I couldn't explain, I already knew this wasn't the last time I'd see her. I didn't expect her to text me first. It came the next evening, a simple message. "Thank you for the dance. You reminded me I'm still alive." I must have reread it 10 times before typing back something safe. "It was my honor, Mrs. Hale." Then I stared at that Mrs. for too long. I deleted it, rewrote it, sent it anyway. She replied an hour later. "Elise. Just Elise." 2 days passed before I saw her again. She was in the cafe near campus, sitting by the window, reading. I almost didn't go in, but she looked up at the exact moment I reached the door. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. You found my hiding place, she said, smiling that soft, unreadable smile again. Guess I'm predictable. Or curious, she said, closing her book. Which is worse? I didn't answer. I just sat down. For a while, we talked like old friends. She used to be a teacher, she told me, English Lit, before her husband left 3 years ago. The wedding had been hard for her. Watching her son start something new while hers had already ended. She said it like a fact, but the way she stared at her untouched coffee said otherwise. I kept thinking someone would ask me to dance, she said. No one did. Until you. I tried to joke it off, but the weight in her voice silenced me. I looked down, then up again, and she was already watching me. Too long. Too openly. There was a risk in that look. And we both knew it. I told her I'd been friends with her son since freshman year. That we'd shared dorm rooms, late-night pizza runs, bad breakup stories. She laughed softly. So you've heard my son's version of me then. The strict mom. The overthinker. I heard you made the best lasagna on campus visits, I said. Her smile cracked into a laugh that made her seem younger for a moment. That's true. We sat in silence after that. Comfortable. Dangerous. It should have ended there. I should have stood up, said goodbye, and gone back to pretending that night never happened. But she reached across the table to move a coffee cup out of my way, and her hand brushed mine, light, unplanned, but long enough to make the air shift. I froze. She didn't pull back right away. Sorry, she whispered. It's okay, I said too quietly. Her gaze flickered, down to our hands, then up again. You shouldn't be here, she said, though she didn't move. I know. Then why are you? I thought about lying, but what came out was the truth. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Something in her expression broke. Not shock, recognition. Like she'd been fighting the same thought and lost. She exhaled slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Don't make me remember what that feels like. But when she stood to leave, she let her fingers linger on the edge of my sleeve, a touch so brief it could have been an accident, except we both knew it wasn't. And just like that, the distance between us became the most fragile, dangerous thing in the world. It should have ended at the cafe. We both knew it. But knowing and stopping are two different things. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned, or maybe that's what I told myself. She was leaving the florist shop on Main Street, carrying white lilies, the kind used for graves. When she spotted me across the street, she hesitated. Then she smiled, small and uncertain, and that was enough to pull me over. Funeral? I asked before thinking. My mother's, she said. Anniversary. I apologized, but she shook her head, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her hand trembled slightly. Don't. You didn't know. She looked tired, not the kind you fix with sleep, the kind that sinks deeper, like a shadow that never fades. Coffee? I offered. Or just company? She hesitated, then nodded. We ended up in her car, parked along the old pier. Rain drizzled on the windshield, blurring the world outside into watercolor streaks. The air smelled faintly of lilies and ocean. I shouldn't have come, she said. I know. Neither of us moved. The radio hummed low. A love song from another decade. You're so young, she murmured. And you keep saying that, I replied, trying to sound casual, failing. Her lips parted, maybe to argue, maybe to confess, but instead she looked away, tracing a raindrop down the glass. My husband used to drive me here, she said finally. He'd buy flowers and forget why. She laughed once hollow. Now I can't forget anything. I wanted to touch her hand, to take the sadness away for a second. But before I could, my phone buzzed. It was Evan, her son. Mom told me she saw you the other night. You good? My stomach tightened. She saw the name flash and went still. He worries, she said softly. He always did. Did you tell him? Of course not, she interrupted, a little too quickly. Then, quieter. But if he asks again, I won't lie. That silence between us turned heavy, the kind that presses against your ribs. Elise, don't, she said, closing her eyes. Don't say my name like that. But when she turned toward me, her face was inches away. Close enough to see the fine lines near her eyes, the faint gloss on her lips. I didn't move. Neither did she. The air inside the car felt charged, like we were standing on the edge of something that couldn't be undone. Then her phone rang. Loud. Jarring. We both jumped. She fumbled for it, glanced at the screen. Evan. Her voice wavered when she answered. Hey, honey, yes, I'm fine, just running errands. She smiled while she spoke, but her eyes stayed on me, steady, haunted, trembling with something she didn't have a word for. When the call ended, she exhaled hard, like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. This has to stop, she said, more to herself than to me. I know, I whispered. But neither of us reached for the door handle. Rain dripped from the edge of the windshield, slow and rhythmic, the world outside fading into blur. Her hand hovered between us, not touching, not pulling away, and the distance felt unbearable. We didn't kiss. But the silence between us said everything we were too afraid to doubt. It had been 2 weeks since the rain in her car. 2 weeks of silence that buzzed louder than any word she could have said. I told myself I'd moved on. That whatever that was, that moment hanging between us, had passed. Then the rehearsal dinner happened. Evan had invited me out of habit. I almost said no, but showing up felt easier than explaining why I couldn't. So I went, and there she was. Elise. In a black dress that didn't belong to anyone's mother. She saw me before I saw her. The look on her face, brief shock, then something sharper, like she just remembered a secret she'd been trying to bury. I should have looked away. I didn't. All night, I tried to play the part. The friend. The best man. The one who laughed too loudly, refilled everyone's glasses, made small talk about honeymoon plans. But every time I looked up, she was there, talking to someone, pretending not to notice me noticing her. Then her ex-husband showed up. Late. Confident. The kind of man who fills a room without earning it. I didn't know he'd been invited. He kissed her cheek like he still owned the right, and she froze just long enough for me to see it. That small flinch, the kind you only notice when you care too much. I left the table. She followed. Outside, the night was humid, the sky bruised purple. You shouldn't have come, she said, arms crossed, voice shaking. I was invited. You know what I mean. Her eyes flashed, not anger, not exactly. Fear, maybe? Or guilt. Something brittle that could shatter with one wrong word. He's back, I said quietly. He's not back, she snapped. Then softer. He just shows up when there's attention to steal. She looked away, shoulders tense, like she was holding something in place that had been breaking for years. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. You don't have to act like he still matters. Her jaw tightened. Don't do that. Do what? Act like you understand? Then explain it to me, I said, the word sharper than I meant. Tell me why you look at me like that and then pretend it's nothing. Her breath hitched. She turned, eyes wet but fierce. Because it's wrong. Because you're his friend. Because I can't let myself want something that would destroy everything left standing. The air between us pulsed, hot, fragile, full of things we'd both tried not to name. You already do, I said quietly. Her face softened, her defenses faltering just for a second. And you think that makes it easier? The door opened behind us, laughter spilled out, someone calling her name. She stepped back, panic flashing across her face. "Elise," I said, reaching for her wrist. She froze. Our eyes locked, too close, too exposed. "Don't," she whispered. "Please." But she didn't move. The world around us kept going, voices, music, clinking glasses. But in that narrow strip of darkness outside the hall, it felt like time had stopped waiting for us to decide who would break first. Then the laughter from inside faded, and all that was left was the sound of her uneven breath, and mine trying to match it. We were one heartbeat away from crossing a line neither of us could uncross. And then, the door creaked open again, the door creaked open, and there he was. Evan. Her son. My best friend. For a second, none of us moved. His expression shifted, confusion first, then something darker, sharper, as his gaze bounced between his mother's face and my hand still hovering near her wrist. "Am I interrupting something?" he asked too evenly. Elise's lips parted, but no sound came out. I stepped back like distance could erase what he'd just seen. "Nothing," I said quickly. "We were just talking." "Outside?" he asked. "In the dark?" There was no sarcasm in his tone, that made it worse. Elise finally spoke. "Evan, please. It's not what you think." He laughed once, short and bitter. "Then tell me what I should think." She reached for him, but he pulled back. "You've had too much to drink," she said softly. "Let's go home." But he didn't move. His jaw clenched, his eyes still locked on me. "How long?" The question hit like a physical thing. I opened my mouth, nothing came out. Elise's silence lasted too long to save us. He shook his head and walked away, fast. "Evan!" she called, but he was already gone. She turned back to me, her face pale, the music from inside muffled by the pounding in my chest. "This isn't what I wanted," she whispered. I believed her. But it didn't matter. The next morning, she didn't answer my calls. By afternoon, Evan showed up at my apartment. He didn't knock, just walked in, furious, heartbroken, trying to look composed. "I don't know what's going on," he said, "and I don't want to. But whatever that was, it stops now." "It already has," I said quietly. "Good." He turned to leave, then stopped. "She's selling the house." I blinked. "What?" "She told me this morning. Said she needs a change. Moving closer to her sister." He looked back at me. "You don't get to be part of that." When he was gone, the silence felt heavier than his anger. That night, I drove to her place anyway. Half the lights were off. The front door was open just enough to let the wind move the curtain. She was in the living room, surrounded by boxes. "You shouldn't be here," she said without looking up. "You're leaving?" She sighed, setting down a picture frame, her, Evan, and her ex-husband, back when everything looked simpler. "It's better this way." "For who?" "For everyone." I stepped closer. "You don't believe that?" Her voice broke just a little. "I can't stay and watch him look at me like that. Like I've done something unforgivable. He'll come around." "No," she said quietly. He saw the truth before I could admit it. I wanted to ask what she meant, but then she looked up at me, eyes glassy, tired. "I told him," she said. My heart stopped. "You what?" "I told him I loved you," she whispered. The words hung in the air, raw, final, dangerous. Outside, the wind caught the curtain again, making it sway like the world was holding its breath. "Now you have to go," she said. "Before I make it worse." But I couldn't move. Not yet. Not after that. When I got home that night, her words wouldn't leave my head. "I told him I loved you." It should have felt good, like winning something impossible. Instead, it felt like loss. Like she'd set fire to both our lives and left me holding the match. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. By morning, I knew I couldn't let it end like that. Her house looked smaller in daylight. Half-packed boxes lined the hallway, the kind of chaos that says someone's already half gone. She was sitting at the kitchen table, still in her robe, coffee untouched. "You shouldn't be here," she said again. But her voice didn't have any strength left in it. "I had to see you." "Evan knows," she said, staring at the table. "He won't speak to me." "I'll talk to him." "No." She looked up sharply. "You'll make it worse. He needs time." "So do you," I said. Her eyes softened, almost a smile, almost a wince. "You think time fixes everything?" "No," I said quietly. "But sometimes it keeps you from breaking completely." She stood, pushing her hair back, restless. "You should hate me." "I've ruined, don't," I said, cutting her off. "Don't turn this into something ugly. What we had, what we have, it wasn't wrong. It just doesn't fit in the world we live in." She closed her eyes like she wanted to believe that but couldn't. "I keep thinking," she said, "if I were younger, or you were older, it wouldn't change anything." I interrupted. "It's not about time. It's about you." That made her look at me. Really look. For the first time since all this began, she didn't flinch. She didn't hide. "I don't know how to stop loving you," she whispered. "Then don't," I said. "Just don't pretend it didn't happen." The air between us thickened, quiet but charged, the kind of silence that feels like a confession. Her hand reached for mine across the table. Our fingers brushed, familiar now, dangerous still. "You'll go back to your life," she said. "Finish school. Get married. Forget me. You really think I could?" She laughed softly, shaking her head. "That's the problem, isn't it? You're too young to realize what forgetting costs. I'm old enough to know what I'll regret." Her hand tightened slightly on mine, one small rebellion against everything that said we couldn't exist. For a second, I thought she'd tell me to stay. Or kiss me. Or break. Instead, she said, "Don't let this be your story's ending. Let it be your beginning." I didn't answer. I just stood, memorizing her face, the tired eyes, the fragile smile, the way sunlight hit the edge of her hair. When I reached the door, she said my name, once softly. I turned. "Thank you," she said, "for reminding me I'm still alive." Same words she texted me weeks ago. Only this time, I knew what they really meant. 3 months passed before I saw her again. Not long enough to forget, but long enough for life to start pretending it had moved on. Evan and I spoke again, carefully, like two people walking around broken glass. He didn't bring her up, and I didn't push. But every time he said, "Mom," I heard her voice in the silence that followed. She'd moved to her sister's place 2 towns over. No new address, no goodbye. Just distance. Still, some people don't leave cleanly. They stay in the way you fold your hands, the songs you skip, the empty side of a conversation that used to mean everything. The wedding photos came in late summer. I was at Evan's when he opened the box, laughing, flipping through memories printed too bright. Then he froze at one picture. It was her. Elise. Dancing. Not with me, with him. Her son. But I was in the background, blurred by motion, caught mid-step, watching them. He didn't say anything, just handed me the picture. I almost didn't take it. "She seems happy there," he said quietly. "Yeah," I managed. "She told me she needed time to figure things out," he went on. "I think she's trying." I nodded, unable to say the truth. I wasn't sure I wanted her to forget. That night, I drove to the old pier, the one where it rained that day in her car. The lilies were gone, but I could still smell the ocean, still hear the faint hum of that radio song that never finished. I didn't expect her to be there. But she was. Standing by the railing, hair blowing in the wind, same coat, same quiet posture that made her look both fragile and sure of herself. When she turned and saw me, there was no shock. Just something calm, inevitable. "You found me again," she said. "I wasn't looking," I lied. "Liar," she said, smiling faintly. We stood side by side, watching the water move in slow gray waves. "I thought you left for good," I said. "I tried," she replied. "Didn't work." Silence. Then I asked the question I'd been carrying like a stone. "Do you regret it?" Her answer came slow, measured. "No. Regret is what happens when you lie to yourself." "We didn't." The wind lifted her hair, carrying her voice just enough for me to hear the next words. "I just wish I'd met you at the right time." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. I just reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. For a moment, it was enough: the waves, the wind, the quiet between us finally feeling peaceful instead of forbidden. Then she whispered, "This is our last dance, isn't it?" "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe it's just the song changing." She smiled, that small, tired, beautiful smile I'd memorized months ago, and leaned her head against my shoulder. We stayed like that until the sky turned gold and everything around us felt softer, almost new. When she finally stepped back, she pressed something into my hand, a folded photo from the wedding. The one where she was dancing with her son. "Keep it," she said, "so you'll remember the right part of me." Then she walked away. Not rushed. Not broken. Just ready. I watched until she disappeared into the horizon, sunlight catching her hair one last time, and for the first time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like both of us had finally learned how to let something beautiful go without killing it. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Heartbreaks that heal, forbidden love that burns, or second chances that almost slip away?